So I wanted to hop on here and talk a little bit about ballpoint pens. So I got this cute pen for Christmas, right? This is Kuromi from Hello Kitty, and I really wanted this pen. So a lot of ballpoint pens you can get in this like super fine point, and they write really nice. And ballpoint pens are underrated sometimes. And so I was going to talk a little bit about an issue I had with this pen and how you can deal with it. So I feel like sometimes you get a new ballpoint pen, you go to write with it, and it doesn't write. You're like, just throw it in the garbage, because some of the ballpoint pens we get, like are super cheap, and there's a reason for that. Ballpoint pens, like I said, have been around for a long time, and the ink that they use in them is actually fairly cheap to produce, and that's why you can get some ballpoint pens fairly cheap. But this particular pen has a refillable piece in it, so I knew that I could use it over and over again if I wanted to, but it wouldn't write. And so I want to talk just a little bit about how ballpoint pens work, and then what you can do if you get one and it's not writing. Don't throw it in the trash. So ballpoint pens operate on this little, they have a ball in that's why they're called ballpoint pens. A little ball in the very end of them, and it's so tiny, especially on the fine point ones, that you can't really see it. So it's like this little ball bearing. It's kind of like a socket situation. So if you think about roll-on deodorant, you know how they have like the little plastic ball that fits into and whenever you roll it in your underarm, the deodorant picks up on the ball and rolls out. The ballpoint pen operates kind of the same way, except when you're writing with it, ink drains down using gravity, and as you're writing, the ball rolls around in that little hole that's just big enough for that ball to fit in and have a little bit of space to move, and picks up the ink. Well, the ink that they use in a ballpoint pen is meant to dry fairly rapidly as it lays down on a page. So, I mean, it's great for lefties generally. Every now and then you get certain ballpoint pen makers that don't use a specific. You can have a really oily ink that doesn't dry as well, and they take a little longer to dry, and those aren't as great for lefties. But most ballpoint pen ink dries pretty quickly, and it tends to have good flow once you get going. But getting the flow going is the problem. So let's talk about that. Whenever you get a ballpoint pen, if it doesn't work right, if it doesn't have good flow, I suggest, first of all, either shaking it just to make sure that it's not that the ink hasn't, because sometimes I tell people to try to store pens with your point down, because a lot of pens do rely on gravity. So you want the ink to drain towards the point. So shake it first. Make sure that's not the problem. If that doesn't work, I tried blowing, making sure that there, were any air bubbles or anything down there that I could try to force the ink down. That wasn't the problem. So my next method was scribble, 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 scribble. And I was not scribbling hard enough, so I scribbled harder and just did some back and forth lines instead of circles. And sometimes you just need pressure. So I tried a rubber eraser, and then went back to scribbling, and it finally started writing. So things that you can try blowing into the open end of the ink cartridge. You can try shaking the pen. You can try scribbling with a little bit of aggressive pressure. You can try tapping the pen on a surface, like drawing dots on a piece of paper, because that's like this. You can try the swirl method. And then the rubber thing, like even on the bottom of your shoe, like anything that's to help unclog the nib of the pen, because it's basically what's happening is you've got some clogged ink in there. And last resort for me is always the lighter method, where you take a lighter and you put it on the end of a pen, because I feel like exposing that metal tip to heat is a little close to the plastic, and you can't do it for very long. So hot water, like boiling water or a flame, is always last resort for me if I can't get it to work. But I'm telling you, something will get it unclogged. And that's basically what the problem is it's clogged in there, and you need to get it unclogged. Since it was a new pen and it had ink in it, I knew that it would write. It just needed to flow first. So if you guys have questions, let me know. We'll talk about other pens at some point, but I think ballpoint pens are pretty universal, and sometimes we always have this problem. So if it's something you're interested in, let me know what other kinds of pens you want me to talk about.